Wes Snarky's Revenge. Neither Marty nor I much liked Wes, and Wes made it quite obvious he didn't much like us. I could never forget how he and his cronies had tormented me almost every night on the ship. I'm sure he could not forget how Marty had come to my defence and humiliated him on the deck that day. That must have still rankled with him. So the result was that we hardly ever spoke. In fact, we hardly ever spoke to anyone during those first few months at Cooper's Station. In the dormitory, at the line of the wash buckets, on the veranda, and eating on the long trestle table, or even out at the work on the farm. He kept himself to himself. Even at playtime, when we'd all be kicking a football around, he'd sit there on his own, gazing out at nothing. And of course, out of all of us, Wes Snarky was the only loner. But then one day, I found out that he really wasn't a loner at all. He had a friend, a best friend. We were mucking out the pigs one day when I noticed he'd gone off again. I made quite sure that Piggy Bacon wasn't about, and I went looking for him. I found him by Big Black Jack's paddock. I crouched down on the trunk of a fallen tree and watched him. He was standing by the fences, feeding Big Black Jack with some bread crusts, and he was talking to him as if he was a real person, not a horse at all. I was close enough to see everything and to hear everything too. Wes was telling him about a horse he'd known in England, in Leeds, a milkman's horse, a piebald mare, and how every morning he'd sit on the wall of the orphanage in the early morning and wait for her to come, and how he'd saved his bread crust to feed her, and how one day the milkman had let him sit on her, and they'd gone off down the street, and how it was the best day of his life. And he whispered, "Will you let me ride you one day?" He whispered, smoothing his neck. "Would you? I could ride you out of here and we'd never come back." Down near the creek, which was dried up for most of the year, there was an old tree stump, and we couldn't pull it out. We'd been digging around it and trying to pull it out for a whole day, with all of us hauling on the ropes, and even with Piggy Bacon lending a hand himself. And that hardly ever happened. We still couldn't shift it. So in the end, Piggy Bacon harnessed up Big Black Jack and got him to do the job instead. But no matter how hard Jack strained at the ropes, the stump would not budge. Piggy Bacon shouted at him, but it did no good. Big Black Jack was doing all he could. We could see that. Piggy Bacon took a stick to him then, and he whacked him again and again. He was bellowing at him, "You useless bag of bones, lazy devil, you good for nothing you." And then Piggy Bacon used his whip on him. In a frenzy of fury and frustration, he whipped him until he bled. That was when Wes Snarky went for Piggy Bacon. He ran at him, screaming like a wild thing. He headbutted him fully in the belly, knocking the wind out of him. He sent him sprawling into the dust. Together they rolled over and over, with Wes ending up on top, sitting astride him and pounding him with his fists. We were all cheering, and then he leapt up and down until Mrs. Bacon came running across from the house and pulled Wes off. Not before the damage had been done. Not before the blood had been drawn. Piggy Bacon was never quite as frightening to us as after that. His temper could still be terrifying, and we still hated him as much. But we'd seen the wicked giant felled. We had seen his blood. Of course, he made Wes pay. He made us all play. We had no playtime for a week, no bread for our soup for a week. Wes got 12 strokes of the strap that night. He didn't seem to mind a bit. He sat on his bunk, nursing his hand afterwards, grinning up at us, looking happy. We knew we'd made a new friend of all of us, and he was happy. So we, from that day, were a solidarity amongst us. We smiled more. We joked more. All this had been Wes Snarky's doing. He had had his revenge, and it was a sweet revenge for us all. He wasn't just a friend now. He was our hero too. Around the Horn with dolphins too. 2000 hours, 9th of March, 55 degrees, 47 minutes south, 74 degrees, 6 minutes west. Dear Mum, dear Grandpa, dear everyone, it feels like this really is the bottom of the earth down here. The sky up there is black with rain squalls and the wind screaming like I've never heard it before. This is not a funny place to be. Don't think I'll hang around in Kitty 4. She doesn't seem to care. She bounces along, storm rides the jibs, up 2 poles, 6 knots, riding each wave like it was just a ripple. If this was a talking boat, it's about the only thing it can't do, she'd be shouting at the waves. Bring it on, baby, give me more. See if I care. You think you can beat me? No way, Jose. And you should see the waves. She'd be shouting at them. They're about 15 metres from bottom to top. So when you're down in a trough and you look up, it's as if they're about 50 metres. And they're long. That's what makes them so different. They travelled all around the world just to meet us up here. Aren't they nice? Aren't they kind? Building up all the time. Up to 200 metres long. I promise you, it's awesome. It's magnificent. Majestic. Amazing. Exhilarating. Overwhelming. I'm running out of adjectives, so I'll stop. They're wave monsters, that's what they are. And when one decides to break, it's like an avalanche that goes on. And Kitty 4 does snowboarding and then surfing through the middle of it. Raging white water all around the air, snow forming. It's so beautiful, so wonderful. It should be scary, but it's not. I'm too excited to be frightened. Too much to think about, too much to do, and maybe I am too a cretin to be scared, Grandpa. And besides, I keep thinking that every wave brings us nearer to the Horn. The Horn is dead ahead by my reckoning, only 230 miles to go. Can you believe that? We should be going around it on Friday. If all goes well, it's strange, I'm not worried at all. Maybe that's because my albatross is still up there, still with us. He hovers over the bow, like he's leading us, like he's showing us the way. The wind doesn't seem to bother him at all. I mean, why isn't he just blown away? How does he do it? He looks like he's playing with the wind. He looks like he's having fun with it and teasing it. He's not just the king of the birds, he's the master of the wind too. And against the black of the clouds, he looks whiter than he's ever been. White as an angel, a guardian angel. And I keep saying it, I know, but that's what he looks like to me. I had the last of my sausage and baked beans for my supper. I got to go easy on the hot chocolate as I'm going to run out. If I'm not careful. One problem, caught my little finger in a rope and I think it's broken. So I strapped it up and I can't feel most of it most of the time, so that's good. But I can hear you saying, Mum, yes, I'll be careful. I've got 9 more fingers. so no worries. I'm loving this. I'm loving you all. Ali. 18:25 hours, the 11th of March. 56 degrees, 00 minutes south. 67 degrees, 15 minutes west. I've done it! I've done it! I've done it! Woohoo! We're going around the Horn, and with dolphins too. And my albatross, of course. I'm going to tell you how it was. I know the Horn was there, but I couldn't see her. Every time we climbed a wave in the last 4 hours, I was looking for her. But she was never there. So from time to time, I'd go down to check the screen. The Horn was always on the screen, but never where she could be. I went back up from the cockpit again and again. It was so frustrating. But Kitty 4 just didn't seem to want to stay on top of a wave long enough for me to catch my first glimpse of land. Then I did. I whooped and I yelled and I sang and I danced. Well, sort of. There's not a lot of room for dancing in the cockpit. And my albatross swooped down low over the boat, almost touching me as he flew by. Then he soared up high and went off towards the Horn. I suppose he was going to have a look himself. I guess he'll be back. I'd been dreaming about this moment, Mum and Grandpa, ever since I first read about it. Or did Dad talk about it first? I can't remember. And now I'm doing it. I'm here. Kitty 4 is poled out, full main, no squalls about, a west wind of 15 to 20 knots. I've got to change the flag soon from Chilean to Argentinian, and then Aussie and Greek. There's one still up there, Grandpa. It looks a bit battered and torn like me, but they're still flapping up there. They look really happy, really proud we've made it, and me too. I'm flapping with happiness.